Good afternoon, everyone. Our apologies for not being present, but it was not really possible for us. And I hope that the presentation goes smooth and that we can contribute to this very nice activity of our project Fitness. So I will start the presentation. Can you please confirm that you see the first slide?
Yes.
Thank you very much. So this presentation will be between myself and my colleague, Selbourne. And we will speak a little bit about recycling of paper and board and safety issues that were very well introduced already this morning and now that Olivier was speaking. So to comply with this objective, we felt the need to go a little bit over through the different types of paper and board and some notes on recyclability, composition, and the importance of the recycling chain, and then a little bit of technology. Then we go through the safety part, and we introduce, speaking about the potential hazards in general, and the impact of recovery and the recycling process on these potential hazards. And then my colleague will speak a little bit about the criteria for safety as it is reflected today in the legislation or recommendations that are in place in different countries. So paper and board have a lot of applications in food packaging, as we know, and we have a range of different formats, since glassine paper to folding cartons, corrugated board for boxes associated to transport. We have combined materials as composite cans and cartons for liquids that are produced from laminates, including not only cellulose, but also plastic and aluminum. More recently, a lot of short contact term items like salads and catering is served in coated board. And of course, this has implications on the recycling. The type of paper regarding the composition has a very, very important impact in the recyclability. And since glassine, for example, that is made out of kraft liner uncoated, typically virgin pulp, then we have test liner with made out of recycled pulp. And then we have different combinations, coatings on one or both faces of the cellulose layer. That includes, for example, fillers, binders, starch, a number of additives and substances that are intended used to bring and enhance properties to the cellulose layer. When we need barrier, we coat with either mineral or polymeric coating, and this can come up to 10 or 20% of the whole material. And for when even more barrier is needed, we may have varnishes. We have inks when we need to print, clays, we have pigments and other barriers. So it becomes more complex to recycle. And although the aspect often is a cellulose-based material, a paper and board, but in the composition we have other components that may somehow limit the recyclability. Well, there is a definition from ISO that specifies the requirements for packaging to be classified as recoverable. And what I would like to highlight is that the success of recycling chain needs different elements. It starts with the design for recycling, but of course, it needs to have implemented the capacity to recycle. But then there is a major difference between what is considered recyclable and what is really recycled, because consumer behavior is very, very important on this aspect to the success of a recycling chain in actually obtaining high rates of recycled packaging. And I would like to point out something that often is forgotten, that there is, since long time ago, symbols for identification to assist on sorting, which are very, very common for plastics, and now are becoming more used for paper and paperboard based products. So these symbols, although exist in the legislation for a long time, only recently they are becoming more common in our packages. So why do we want to recycle paper? Well, basically, this proposed regulation on packaging and packaging wastes, it sets recyclability targets and will grade the materials according to their recyclability score. And non-recyclable materials will be subject to fees, very restrictive. In several countries, there are bans for non-recyclable materials. And therefore, in spite that fiber-based packaging today in Europe has a much higher recycling rate than other materials, basically because of the transportation boxes, which account for a lot of the volume and weight, still is expected, and there is a great effort on developments to developments, my apologies, on increase the recyclability of the paper-based materials. So the recovery and the recycling process, like in plastics, is a combination of different sets, different phases, from the pre-processing, where we have collection, separation, pre-cleaning, and shredding. Then we have the decontamination process, where we have repulping, we have de-inking, washing, and then we can have different treatments like mechanical, thermal, and chemical treatments. And then we have post-processing, where we have typically the sheet forming to become again paper, and we can have coating or lamination with other materials depending on the application, especially for food. These three steps are depending and also impact on the following step in the chain. For example, in the pre-processing, the source and origin of the recovered material is very important, because it will impact on the classification of the papers, for example, and on the type of the process that will be needed. Then the decontamination process is key for elimination of any contamination that certainly will be present. And then the post-processing, it's designed according to the requirements for the intended use of the recovered and recycled material. So the three are very, very much linked, like we have in other systems, namely in plastics. So the most common process, it starts with pulping, and then we have some screening and depuration. The ink by flotation, for example, is one of the processes that are very much used. And then we need to bring the slurry that will produce the paper to the right consistency. And we may or not have a step for bleaching. If we want to write paper, we need to use chemicals to eliminate the natural color of the fibers. Finally, we have refining steps, and then the paper sheet forming, like if virgin fibers would be. In this slide, which I borrowed from some technology suppliers, we have a basic process where we have the feeding belt here of the bales. The bales arrive to the recycler and they are fed in this type of belt into a pulper. And here in the right side of the slide we have some details of the pulper. There are different types of pulpers, of course, but this is one of the most used and one of the most simple. And what I would like to point out is that we have here the mechanical disintegration, because we have this rotor. And here already occurs a separation of plastics and other residues of medium, large dimensions. And it's very curious, I find, how these residues are separated, because the wires of the bales are not removed entirely, and when they are here, they are twisted naturally because of the action of the rotor, and there is a rope formation that pulls up all the residues that can be that are of a certain dimension and therefore are twisted together in this rope. And so we have already here the first separation of residues by using just mechanical and mechanical force and water. So then we have separation by density. Again, other impurities with different densities compared to the fibers are reduced. And then we have a screening to take particles again, and also to not remove, but to catch the shorter fibers to reduce their loss, and these are then reintroduced in the pulper, and so they are then used. Finally, they go to washing and further steps that will follow in order to enter the paper machine, the paper sheet forming. Here we can see different problems that according to the composition of the paper we may encounter during recycling. Like, for example, in this one, when we have napkins which have additives for wet resistance, we are not able to form a sheet with some quality. Or if we have paraffin or hot melt glue, for example, or if we have a couche treatment. So all these treatments and additives and layers that are used to improve the performance of the cellulose layer as food packaging then have consequences on the recycling. So this is a difficult trade-off to obtain. We have, as I indicated, this European standard which classify the grades of paper and board for recycling. There are some materials or some provisions for substances that cannot be present. For example, medical waste and paper products contaminated with personal hygienic items, for example. So it's important that the papers are classified accordingly, and only some types are allowed to be recycled. And there is a maximum tolerance level for non-paper products, maximum 1.5%, and for unwanted materials. And so recycling needs to have this pre-classification already existing in European standards. Here is just a screenshot of the classification that range from group 1, which have, for example, corrugated paper and board, to group 5, where we have, for example, liquid board packaging and papers that are somehow laminated or sprayed with other polymers. Now, going to the potential hazards, there is a wide range of chemicals that can be present, not only the printing ink components and the components that are used intentionally, but of course we may have, like in plastics, non-food contact materials with non-authorized and non-regulated. We may have chemicals from other materials, and we may have degradation products from the raw materials, from the polymers, if we have layers and of additives. And contrarily to plastics, in this area, paper, we have additionally microbiological issues that should be taken care. So we have not only the NIAs and the non-intentionally added, but we have also the chemicals that are used in treatments to improve the barriers, like the wet hand sizing agents that now are used as replacers of perfluoroalkyl substances. We have many chemical modification with hydrophobic treatments, and now we have new migrating substances like these microfibers, microfibrillated, which are becoming used, and so this all together makes that recycled paper today is very, very limited to applications in very short times of contact, if any. Some of the contaminants are very strongly bound to the pulp, depending on the polarity, and as we know, the cellulose fiber is highly hydrophilic, and some of the contaminants are difficult to remove. So we need to have the proper extraction procedure for decontamination of these fibers if we want to have completely useful and recyclable for food contact. So it's even more important than in plastics to control very well the input and to specify very well the output. And this brings us to the criteria for safety that in Europe and United States as well are very much focusing on specifying the output and analyzing the final material for specific contaminants. But then I pass the floor to my colleague, which is going to address these aspects.
So hello everyone. Yes, so Fatima was saying that it's very important to have like a high quality of the input material. So when we collect, a very efficient process of cleaning. So because in the end we need to show compliance with the requirements of the General Regulation 1935. We need to prove that our recycled paper is going to be safe. We have other considerations to comply, like the good manufacture practice, traceability, etc. And it's very hard to do because we don't have any harmonized legislation in Europe. We have some guidelines, as Olivier already pointed out about one of the examples. And we have some countries in Europe, they have their specific regulation, like I placed here on this slide, Germany, France, Netherlands. Germany with a positive list or a quite a big document listing all the substances that can be used to produce the paper for food contact. So in order at the end we will be able to write the declaration of compliance of the product. So no harmonized legislation. We can look deep into the BFR. So the German documents is more than one. I just put here the recommendation 36. France, we have the fish MCDA number 4 that was already pointed out by Olivier. And in the United States, they have more than one part, two parts not related to pulp or recycled fiber, and they have a little part, this 176.260, a very short document explaining about the permission of using pulp from reclaimed fiber. Two guidelines. So the EDKM was shown by Olivier, but I would like to mention the other guideline that we think is very useful and explains very well what we can do to show compliance for the paper and board in contact with foods, including recycled paper and board. And this is the guideline from CEPI, the Confederation of European Paper Industry. So if we can summarize the German document, the German recommendation with a list of compulsory recommendations that we have to use to prove that the paper and board is safe. So there are some general topics One that we have to show that the paper shows no preservative effect on the foodstuff. There's some restrictions to comply on some metals, heavy metals, the cadmium, the lead, and also restrictions for aluminium. Azo dyes must not be used. Optical brightness must not migrate. Color also shouldn't migrate. Recommendations on compliance with the non-detectable amount of primary aromatic amines. And then behavior has separated table at the end of this document, the recommendation 36, with a list of substances that are important to check out when we have input of recycled fibers. So the list goes on, starting with the Michler ketones, phthalates, benzophenone, bisphenol A and S, and the isopropyl naphthalene. Because the BFR has a positive list or has a list of ingredients authorized to produce paper and board, we should check of some substances that are quite common when you produce paper from the virgin fibers. And so maybe we should actually take care on our recycled board to check for the presence or migration of the formaldehyde, the glyoxide, etc., and some other metals like arsenic and chromium and copper. So, FDA has one little chapter, I would say, there's only like 4 or 5 paragraphs about the pulp from reclaimed fiber. And what they state is that it's possible to use a pulp from reclaimed fiber to produce food packaging materials, articles for contact with food, as long as the pulp is prepared from paper and board that comes from industrial waste or from other collected system of paper, but these papers shouldn't show the presence of any dangerous substances that they can be retained in the recovered pulp and that may migrate into the food. So this is just like general statement, but not excluding that it's possible to use the pulp from reclaimed fiber. So guidelines, as I said, they are quite useful documents to follow if we don't have national legislation regarding paper and board for food contact. Though the guidelines that I already mentioned, they normally present or they state that we should refer to positive lists presented in other documents. If I will start it by the CEPI guideline, actually says that we should look into the positive list of the BFR. And then he listed substances not intentionally used, and he present criteria for the virgin fiber and for recycled fiber. So the CEPI guideline presents a table where it summarizes the important substances that should be controlled. The first part of the table is actually irrespective of fiber source. So this is like general, either if we are using recycled fiber or virgin fiber. So you got the list. This is extracted straight away from the guideline. And then the list continues showing other substances that are important to control when we use the recycled fiber pulp. Some I already mentioned because they are common to BFR, and some others were added because they are also mentioned in different regulation or legislation from different European countries that have their own legislation. So we have this CP, this table, and if we can demonstrate and follow these recommendations, we get closer to be able to say that our recycled paper and board is safe to get in contact with the foods. About the ADKM, I'm not going to extend a lot myself. So there's a lot of similarities to the other one, and Olivier actually mentioned already the availability of this guideline that has some different aspects I can point out to you that is it seems to be more incisive on the sensorial evaluation and the importance of the suitability microbiological purity that the other guideline doesn't seem to refer. Other things are more or less the same. And then we have the table with some limits to comply. Olivier has a better shot of this table. Mine is not very well in focus. His was much better, so I'm not going to spend some time on the table. And to finalize, we just want to yes, I like that PFAS is a problem, and there's a lot of people now trying to look and investigate the presence of these PFAS. The ADKM document placed as the SML and under discussion, so there is no value there. But then he actually explains that we should read, or we can read the EFSA scientific opinion, where there was a threshold discussed or determined of 4.4 nanograms per kilogram of body weight per week. So this is my last slide. Don't know if everybody's happy and understood our explanation, or if Fatima wants to say something.
Yeah, thank you very much for your attention. Well, we will be here and we will be happy to answer any question. And if we leave our contacts as well, but we are still participating on the activities. So now or later, we will be happy to answer any question you may have.
Actually, there is one question in the chat for you from Dorota. So it's, should we expect that upcoming new regulation restricting use of BPA and some other bisphenol in FCMs will set more strict criteria for monitoring of these substances in recycled paper use in food packaging? So the allowed threshold for their presence as contaminants.
Should we expect that new opinion? Well, yes. If I may, as national reference laboratories, that we are for Portugal, but I guess other colleagues may also have the similar. We have noticed since some time that BPA has been addressed, that vigilant surveillance authorities are becoming more aware and are including BPA analysis in actions that are that they plan and that they implement. this is my feeling, regardless of what it comes from the European Commission orientations, yes, because sometimes the national surveillance agencies or controlling agencies are a little bit pushed by what are the guidance or mandatory, compulsory or not from the European Commission. But even if not is the case, in my opinion, yes, in my observation, yes, I think it's more and more.
Yeah, I can have something because we are the Portuguese National Reference Laboratory, and for the past 2 years, the Portuguese authority is analyzing samples, paper and board samples, looking for the BPA. So, yeah.
Not only BPA, but
also BPA. So much before the new upcoming regulation restricting the use of BPA.
Yeah.
Hi, Fatima. Thank you for the presentation. I have a question for the different recycling classes of the paper and board. Can you associate to them recycling yields or the yield of the fibers which are recovered with those recycling processes?
Yes, I think so, because they are classified pretty much according to the composition in materials or components that may that have an impact on the yield of the recycling process. So yes, I think so. Yes, not only from the hazards aspect, but also on the yield, for sure.
So do you have some numbers?
No. This is a new topic for us, to be honest. And as you know, Sandra, in the fitness is something that we are trying to bring more information to be able to somehow increase the level of knowledge of our students and of our trainers. So it's something that we are studying, but I cannot. I don't have yet that level of information that could I would like to be.
Okay, thanks.